was 22 years old when I came to prison.
I was 30 years old when I went to prison.
I was at the age of 19. I had just turned 19.
Hi, I'm Chris, and I help life-sentenced men transition from institutionalized prison life back into society. Every one of our men has already served 25 to 45 years in prison. I serve on the board of the Corrections Transition Program at Everglades Correctional Institution in Miami, Florida. I teach these men life skills and how to speak, listen, and think, so when they get paroled, they become assets to their communities rather than liabilities of the state. Welcome to Men Going Home. I'm Chris Wolfe, and we've got another great show for you today because we are the only show that brings you access to a segment of society very few people know anything about. Men who have spent more than 30, 35, and even 40 years in prison. We'll talk to them about their crimes, their life in prison, and what their transition back into the free world was like after all those years. However, before we introduce today's special guest, please welcome my good friend and co-host of this show, Andy Corge. Andy, welcome.
Well, thanks, Chris. It's going to be a great show today with Edward. I'm looking forward to hearing his story. And boy, I was blown away by that last interview we did with
Renee Griggs.
Renee Griggs, former detective, City of Davie, the arresting officer and eyewitness in a murder with Barry Stevens, who we had here on an interview here at Men Going Home.
The chances of that happening must be tremendous, tremendously rare, because here we did an interview a few months ago. She was the arresting officer who rolled up on the crime in her patrol car 33 years ago, and she sees the interview and reaches out to us. Fascinating.
It was fascinating. It started with that email that she sent to us that really piqued our attention. And then, boy, that show she talked about racism in the Davie Police Department. She talked about maybe committing a murder herself and being urged to do so.
Right.
And I urge anyone that hasn't seen that program yet to check it out on YouTube. Go to the podcast on Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Podcast, anywhere you get your podcast entertainment.
Outstanding interview and well worth the time to look at that. And
Yes.
watch it.
Yes.
Let's get this show on the road, Andy, and introduce today's special guest. Edward Dueitt was sentenced to life in prison in 1984 and survived over 35 years in Florida's most violent prisons after he was convicted of first-degree murder. He escaped in 1985 for 1 week and was sentenced to an additional 15 years for attempting to rob a taxi driver when he was on the run. Edward is here today to tell his true story of crime, prison, and transition back to society. Please welcome today's guest, Edward Dueitt. Edward, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Andy. It's a pleasure to be here.
You had quite a ride to get here from Jacksonville, I believe, correct?
Yes, sir, I did. Not very much sleep in 31 hours, but hey.
We appreciate you being here.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for
and then
having
you
me.
and I will be at Everglades Correctional Institution tonight, correct?
Yes, sir. Got to go see my brothers.
That's part of your parole agreement, is to come back and speak to the men about your challenges, correct?
Yes, sir. It's part of our what they call their special conditions. It's not like a mandatory you have to on this day, because they understand we're all over the state. We can only travel when we can. It's just expected that, I guess the condition's written that when you're able to, you are expected to participate in the program for like the banquets, the alumni night. COVID, put a, kind of a back burner on a whole lot of stuff. It's the first time I've had a chance to come down in over a year. And
Right.
now that I knew we could come back in, I tried to make arrangements as fast as I could to come down.
I say you spent over 35 years in prison. You actually spent 35 years, 2 months, and 4 days, correct?
Yes, sir.
And how long have you been out of prison now?
The 18th just passed this month was 2 years and 7 months.
And at the age of 25 or 26, that's when you had your 4 convictions. It was a first-degree murder, it was a strong-arm robbery, armed robbery, and then an escape, correct?
It's my original charge actually took place in 1983, as did the murder charge. The other subsequent charges come about, again, like you
Later.
said, after I was already in prison and had went to outside
Right.
court on the original charges. Then that other charge happened in Tallahassee with the cab driver, which was 85.
As I prepared for your interview, what was interesting to me is that you had a very normal childhood. You moved back and forth between Georgia and Alabama throughout your teens.
Yes, sir.
You had wonderful, supportive parents. You have two brothers. You knew at an early age you wanted to be a maritime archaeologist.
Yes, sir.
And you even had a guidance counselor who had lined up basically a guaranteed admission to the premier maritime architectural institute in the country and full scholarship waived. But something went wrong in your life after the summer of 10th grade. What happened in your life?
We had moved. At that time, I had never...
To Mobile, Alabama.
Yes, sir. Well, no, I was living in actually living in a place called Grand Bay. But we had moved, and although I'm going to the same school, it was a different neighborhood. And when we moved in, actually we moved in there on my 17th birthday. And this was the summer after 10th grade. I was an honor roll student, had everything going for me. As you said, I would call it a proffer, contingent upon me doing my part of a full ride scholarship to take maritime archaeology at Scripps Marine Institute in California. And then we moved that summer, the latter part of the summer. It was on my birthday. And then suddenly, all my peers, I would say plus minus 2 or 3 years in the new neighborhood, they all either drank, alcohol, got high on drugs, or both.
And at that point in your life, you never drank and you never did
once.
a drug.
Never. A sip of beer here and there, but I mean, in my entire lifetime, I had not consumed a pint probably of beer and never any kind of drugs.
And you seem to take to alcohol and drugs like a fish takes to water, correct?
I literally did. It wasn't my thing. There was no peer pressure. Literally no peer pressure. There was no, if you want to hang out with us, you got that. Never happened.
No.
I would be a liar if I blamed it on it. I'm responsible for my downfall. I tried it because I wanted to fit in.
And you
like
liked
an
it
outcast.
once you tried it?
That's not even a strong enough word. It took control of me. I went from never having taken a hit on a joint to crushing White Barrel LSD and snorting it 5 weeks after I first started getting high.
Wow.
I went all in badly.
Wow.
It was push the envelope. What else? What else is there to try? It's only by the grace of God that's all I can attribute it to. I never used, people would consider LSD a hardcore drug, but
Correct.
It's not physically dependent. Physically dependent hardcore drugs, heroin, opium, crystal meth, shooting cocaine, stuff like that. I never did any of that, and crack wasn't even around back then, thank God, because I probably would have been in on that too.
So your junior year started, the summer's over, you go to your junior year in high school, and you had always been a very good student, but
Yes, sir.
now you started skipping class, and you actually didn't go to many classes that year except for maybe one class, and you ended up quitting school.
I had one class, my history class, African-American teacher named Inez Green. I will never forget her. If all my teachers would have been how she was, I might have a PhD today. She made learning a joy. She was a natural. I skipped school all day long and show up at 2 o'clock in the afternoon for her class and then leave campus. I never missed one of her classes ever.
And she tried to reach you and get a hold of you, but you were unreachable
Constantly.
at that point, correct?
I was unreachable because I have a firm belief, no matter how bad it is, if a person doesn't want to change, you can't change them.
So
you had a family, right? Parents, the loving parents. What was going on with them during this period when you were not in school and doing
They
drugs
had no
and alcohol?
clue. I was a consummate chameleon. They had no clue.
So you actually quit
And
school.
they weren't by far, their head in the sand, stupid people. No. My parents were very savvy. the signs were never there because I knew what they were, and I avoided giving those signs. They never saw me high. I never come around them when I'd been drinking. None of that. That school I went to, if you didn't show up, you didn't show up. They didn't notify your parents you weren't in school back then, stuff like that.
Right. So at the end of the junior year, you knew you had pretty much failed the whole junior year, and you never came back as a senior. Your parents were absolutely shocked. They didn't suspect a thing, correct?
No, sir, they didn't. When I told them that I failed the 11th grade with an A- average, they were just like, they just looking at me. I mean, that look on their face was like, they knew I was serious, but other part of them's in denial. They can't be serious.
Disbelief.
And my mother said, honey, if this is a joke, this is not very funny.
And you were
I
serious?
said, it's not a joke. I said, that's my report card. I failed the 11th grade. She said, the lowest grade you've got on here is a B, 1B.
But you never went to class.
I said, Mom, I got 3 times as many unexcused absences
Right.
as you can have. I said, I didn't just skip school. I occasionally skipping school and showed up, except for once a day I went to my history class.
So you made the decision, you love maritime stuff, and you made the decision to join the U.S. Coast Guard,
Yes,
and your
sir.
parents supported that.
Yes, sir.
So on your 18th birthday, October 31st of 1977, you joined the U.S. Coast Guard.
Yes, sir.
Talk about that.
Best years of my life would have been a whole lot better if I wouldn't have took my drug habit and drinking habit with me. Again, I was a consummate chameleon. I hid it well. Now, my peers that I got high with, they knew, but like the upper echelon people, they were clueless.
Until 1982, because that's when the U.S. Coast Guard initiated marijuana testing.
All military. They started the actual urine screening and stuff like that.
So you failed the first test, and what happened?
My executive officer, Lieutenant Commander Adams, he called me into the ship's office and he said, Dueitt, we got a problem. He said, your test come back positive. He said, I'm gonna just have them retest you because I know that's wrong. So sometimes they said it can show a false positive. He knew that this couldn't be me, and I told him, I said, XO, I have utter respect for you. I would never ever disrespect you. There's no need to retest me. I failed. I smoked pot. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. And it was like the look my parents gave me. He was like, he misunderstood me. He said, what? I said, yes, sir, I'm dirty.
So then he said, okay, you got a slap on the wrist, but then he said they're going to test you again in 48 days.
He said, we have to wait 40 days for your system to clean out, and then we'll be testing you again. This is just a slap on the wrist. This is just kind of a, don't do that no more. Next time it's not going to be so easy. And I told him, I said, XO, I'm not trying to be facetious. I'm not trying to be sarcastic or disrespectful. Go ahead and process the paperwork for the next one. I'm not going to quit. I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
That's so interesting because as much as you loved being in the Coast Guard, you were not willing to give up marijuana for your career in the Coast Guard.
You love the drugs more.
Life, the only way, I did a very deep moral inventory a long time ago, Chris. For me, life was a Cheech and Chong movie. And everything's going to turn out the way I want it to turn out because I say it's going to turn out that way. This will be okay. Just like the whole time I'm skipping school, I'll make it work in the end some kind of way. There's that part of me that knows you're through. But that drug addicted, I was never even truly a drug addict. It was just an addictive personality that I had.
Right.
Pushing the envelope.
So
In denial. I'll make it work out the way it'll work out okay because I say it's going to.
So 48 days later, you test again. You tested positive for marijuana, and they busted you down a rank.
They busted
Now
a
it
stripe.
affected your real career.
Yep.
And then you tested positive 42 days later again, and they processed you out of the Coast Guard.
Yes, sir. The first time they took a stripe, gave me, I believe it was 30 hours extra duty confinement to ship until such time as that extra duty after normal working hours was completed. Then I could go ashore. But they made that one like a suspensory thing. It's for 90 days. We're going to test you. If you test clean and you don't get in no trouble, 90 days we'll reinstate you, the stripe. Okay. Then they tested me again. I failed again, and they said, we've had enough. You've shown us you're not going to quit. They processed
Does
me
the
out.
Coast Guard have a dishonorable discharge? Or?
Sure, it's a military, Chris, just like any other. We come under
So
the
that's what
Uniform
you
Code of
got? You got a
Military Justice.
dishonorable discharge?
I got a general discharge
Okay.
under less than honorable conditions.
And but
It
you knew
wasn't dishonorable.
you knew before that last test, if you tested negative, you were out.
I knew I was gone. I knew.
Right. And you were basically
But see,
telling
there's
him
that
you're
part of
wasting
me-
your time.
There's that part of me that's not wanting to give up the marijuana. It'll all work out some kind of way. Just some flighty idea of it'll work out some kind of way. You know, I'll jump off the cliff. Somehow I'll live. I know it's a mile to the bottom. Somehow I'll live. Well, you know, how did that work out? But that's just the way, that's what drugs will do to you.
So you're processed out of the U.S. Coast Guard. You hang out in Panama City, Florida for a month. Then you move to Georgia.
Yes, sir.
And you've maintained your partying ways. You're living with a girlfriend.
It was a friend of mine had a house there that I had met, and I'm living with him. And then that's where I met my girlfriend, was through him, young lady that was from Trenton, New Jersey. And we started kind of vibing together and stuff, and then started seeing each other regularly.
You were working heating, air conditioning until October of 1983. Now,
Yes, sir.
here's my question. Was this when, and you get caught later, but somebody talked you into a strong arm robbery in October of 1983?
Yes, sir.
Talk about that.
The whole time I was in prison, they used to use a phrase, he fell for the okie doke. I fell for the consummate okie doke. It was a guy we partied with. His name was Wayne, and he had told me we needed to get some money up for something. He said, man, listen, I know this girl that works up here at this place. It was actually like a good-sized convenience store, but it had a drive-through window in the back where you could drive through. People just drive through and get their beer and stuff. He said, she makes the bank drop after closing on Friday night. I used to work with her. He said, she's a party girl, Ed. She's down with the lick, but we're going to have to break her off. I said, what are you talking about? He said, I'll talk to her. He said, she's done this before, but it's been a long time. It's been like a few years, so nobody would suspect anything. I'm like, well, what are you talking about? He said, when she makes the bank drop, you be dressed, you know, they got a camera out there. Make sure your face is covered and stuff. We'll set it up, jump out. You don't need a weapon or anything. Do the snatch and grab.
Right.
She'll play it off for the camera. Help me, I've been robbed. Oh, you know, whatever.
Right.
You run, I'll be waiting back here. You jump in the car. Hey, everybody's happy. The insurance company, hey, nobody got hurt. What's the big deal?
So
and I was like,
you did the robbery?
oh yeah. I said, that sounds like a good idea, man. That sounds, because to me it was a lark thing. Nobody's going to get hurt.
Right.
It's not even a real robbery. It's a show. You know.
Right.
That's how my mind worked. It's not a crime. So the insurance company, they got the money. People give them money all the time.
And during this time, you're still fueled by the drugs and all that.
Sure. Yeah.
So you show up, and she shows up, and you rob her, and she puts on a pretty good show.
Oh,
You-
a real
you
good
thought-
show.
you
Because
thought-
in my mind, I was like, okay, you struggled enough. You can let me go now. You know what I mean? You turned the bag loose.
But it turned out she knew nothing about the crime, correct?
She was clueless.
So you were set up.
Yeah, and the bad part was my mother knew this woman.
Wow.
But she found out a few years later when you were actually brought up on charges on this, correct? Because at the time of the robbery, you didn't tell your mom.
Oh, no, they knew.
Oh.
They knew, yeah. At the time that happened before my murder charge took place.
Correct.
But now when the murder charge come about not long afterward, that's when I basically could come clean and told my parents all this foul stuff in my life.
Oh,
and
okay. Okay, so she knew. All right. So, and you actually, you get caught later on this robbery, but for now, you kind of got away with it.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell us about Michael Wayne Taylor. He's known as a guy named Zigzag. Who was he?
He was a guy that was, I believe he was like a singer in a little local garage band type thing. And he would come around partying every now and then. Wasn't really like our close-knit circle of party animal friends that were together almost on a daily basis. We might see him once, twice a week or something. He'd come around, we'd party together. You know, that's how I knew him.
So he was just in your partying crowd.
Yeah.
Now, you had a friend named Ken?
Ken Bracewell. He lived in Panama City, Florida. I knew him from not really early childhood, but teenage years. When I had moved there in Mobile the second time, that's when me and Ken became friends. I said that neighborhood where all my peers, either got high or drank or whatever, he was one of them, and he kind of become my best buddy right there.
All right. Take us through. Now, all three of you and several women, you guys are partying. You're doing this whole alcohol, marijuana, cocaine, LSD for like 5 days in a row, no sleep. Zigzag, he's passed out. But Ken takes you in the kitchen and says, hey, this guy, Zigzag, he wants to rob you and then take these women off to Houston.
Yeah, it was me and my girlfriend, we had, we're going that. And the guy Zigzag, Michael Taylor, he had asked me, he said, look, and I forget which was which. He said, I have family. He mentioned Lakeland and Houston, family and friends, which was in which location, I don't remember. He said, can I come as far as Panama City with you guys? And Interstate 10 runs right by it there, and then I can decide which way I want to go from there. Just get a ride that far with you. I asked Donna. She said, it's okay with me. I said, sure, no problem. We get down there. I'm going to Mobile, but I'm stopping by Panama City so Donna can meet my friend Ken and his girlfriend.
Right.
And that's when we were all at a bar called Miss Piggy's in Panama City that night.
Right, but your friend Ken tells you, hey, look, you don't know this, but this guy Zigzag, he wants to rob you of $6,000 you had. So your intention was to drop Zigzag. He's passed out. So you're going to drop him off at the interstate and just leave him and get rid of him, and you guys are going to go ahead.
Yeah.
But what happens?
On the way up there, Ken had said he needed to take a bathroom break.
Right.
And, I forget the exact words. It's been so long. But it was something to the effect of, well, Ken, wait, you got to hold it for a moment. And I'm starting to think, and I'm like, okay, there's somewhere up here I know I can turn off. It's a swimming hole called Ebro Spring, where we used to go up there, freshwater swimming spring, whenever I was stationed there in the service in Panama City. And I said, because I can't pull over on the side of the county highway here. We got drugs in the car. We got booze in the car. I got a gun in this car. He's passed out. You're drunk and high. I'm drunk and high. I'm not stopping and some county cop come by. We're going to jail. I said, so just hold it. I get on up there. I turn off on the dirt road. I go down. I pull in. I back around and I turn facing back out. And we get out and we're using the restroom.
Right.
Zigzag wakes up and comes up out of the back seat. He's real foul language. What the F's going on?
He's got a knife.
Yeah, not at the moment he doesn't. And I told him, I said, Zigzag, get back in the car. I'm taking you up to Interstate 10, and you can go. I use some pretty colorful language.
Right.
Because
I'm
still kind of seething about this. I understand, even as high as I was, I felt like a lot of what he was doing and saying was drugs and alcohol.
Well, you guys were all pretty wasted, correct? 5 days
Real
of partying
wasted.
and no sleep.
Yeah.
And you knew his intentions at this point.
Yeah.
Clearly, right?
And you were just going to drop him off and head your own way, but he ends up pulling out a knife.
When I told him about like the third time, I said, get back in the car or you can walk from here. I thought he was getting back in the car. He leaned up in the car. He was like, he wasn't like a monster guy, but he was, I think, 6'6", 6'1".
Oh, okay.
Probably 190 pounds.
Big guy.
And leans up like he's getting in my car, but when he comes back out, he's got a knife in his hand. I said, Zigzag. I pull my shirt up. I said, I've got a .38 pistol. Drop the knife. Get back in the car. And all this stuff ensues with... And I can even, with a sober state of mind now, look and realize his had to be drugs and alcohol talking as well,
But in reality, you really weren't threatened by him because he was so wasted, right?
He was leaning on the car to stand up.
Right.
Chris. I can't... If I tried to say, I feared for my own life or something, that's a lie. I mean, what happened was not fundamentally who I am. If I would have been sober, I say with 100% conviction, that would have never happened. But I wasn't.
When you were drunk, typically, did you become violent?
No, I didn't. I've never harmed a human being in my life except for that instance.
So you tell him to put the knife down. He's inebriated, wasted. What happened?
He starts, I mean, that's why I know it was drugs and alcohol. He's talking about, you're a coward, you ain't going to shoot me or nobody else. Put the gun down. Starts, like I say, walking, stumbling towards me, leaning on the car. I reach down, I pull the gun out. I said, zigzag, drop that knife and start walking. Your ride's over. And he's getting all loud. Oh, I'll do this and I'll do that. You ain't gonna. And he's just looking all around. Excuse me. And he starts coming towards me, and something inside of me.
How far away was he from you? 10 feet?
10 feet, maybe.
Okay, and then what
maybe.
happened?
Something inside of me snapped, Chris. It was like all of it come to a boil. I'm done talking with you. I'm done trying to reason.
Right.
You wouldn't have been eating. You don't even have shoes on your feet. You wouldn't have been eating, nothing to party. You'd still be stuck in motion if it wasn't for me. And you were talking to people about robbing me and leaving me for dead. I'm done here.
And
I lifted the gun and I pulled the trigger until it was clicking on an empty chamber. One of the rounds, I didn't know then, missed him, but 5 of the bullets hit him.
And
killed
obviously killed him.
Yes.
And what about Donna? Was she shocked?
No, she wasn't on the scene. It was just me, him, and Ken.
Okay.
There's 3 of you.
When we got back to the house, nobody said nothing.
What did you? He drops down. He's hit 5 times. He's obviously dead. What did you do with him?
We just, Chris, at that time I don't even know how to describe it. God forgive me. That's not where my heart's at now.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time, I felt like I was taking out the trash. And that's wrong.
So you just
We
dragged
grabbed him and drug him up in the bushes and left him
and
there.
left him. When was he discovered?
The next day by 2 small
By 2 children?
by 2 small children that were camping with their family.
Yeah. And then how did you get caught?
A week later, I think it was a week later, I had left there. Me and Donna went to Mobile. Donna still doesn't know anything. Ken's girlfriend, Jeannie, doesn't know anything. But after we leave, Ken, again, I can only assume that the whole time he's living in fear.
Right.
We already got rid of the gun. I already got rid of the gun. I don't even have the gun anymore. But he's living in fear like, I know about this. What might Ed do to me? You know, I never threatened him or anything like that, and he was like a brother to me. I couldn't have hurt a hair on his head. If he told me I just called the police, they're on the way, I might have ran, but I wouldn't even thought about hurting him.
Well, he's an accessory at this
Yeah.
point too.
And you went back to wherever you were, and
We went to
everybody thought
Mobile.
he just
Right.
took off for interstate.
Right, me and Donna, right. That's the story we told the girls. We
Right.
dropped him off. He's on his way wherever.
So you and Ken are the only ones who know about this.
Right. And then Ken, who was the only man that did the manly thing, that did the right thing, he had no part in that murder.
Right.
He was just there. He didn't know anything was going to happen because I didn't know anything was going to happen till it did. And he was guilty of nothing except, I believe in hindsight, being afraid to do the right thing until I wasn't there anymore.
So did
When
he go to the
me-
police?
The day we left, he told Jeannie what had actually happened and talked with her and contacted the Panama City Police Department, and they put him in touch with, I guess, either the Washington County Sheriff's Office or the Chipley Police Department.
Right.
And then they come and got him, and he did, all the witness statement and everything. And again, he didn't even do a day in jail, and that's right, because he didn't do anything wrong. He didn't do the right
of
thing
course.
because he was scared because I was still there. That's the
Are
bottom
you still
line.
in contact with Ken?
Oh, no, because he was the one that testified against me. The parole commission frowns on that.
Oh, okay. You can't. Right. You're not allowed to have contact
would-
with him. All right.
If I seen him, I would shake his hand and take him to
But-
dinner
yeah,
and
but
ask
no-
him to forgive
Yeah,
me.
Yeah, no ill will
No.
towards him at all.
I believe because we were close. My mother washed his undershorts. His mother's made me
Right.
breakfast. I believe that had to have been an element within him feeling like he betrayed my trust as a friend and that it ate at him.
So you were
I'm
convicted.
hoping he can find it in his heart to forgive me for what I did to him. A friend doesn't put, someone doesn't put a friend in a position, here's your choices. Help me cover up a murder or betray my trust. What kind of friend does that?
So you were convicted on November 1st of 1984
Yes, sir.
of first-degree murder. You sent to Lake Butler Reception Center. They figure out where they're going to send you. And then they actually sent you to Baker Correctional Institution.
That was my first institution.
Then they sent you to Cross City Correctional.
Yes,
and
sir.
then in July of 1985, that old strong-arm robbery, the guy, he gets caught. And, of course, he does what Andy and I hear all the time. To minimize his sentence, he tells the police about a strong-arm robbery that he knows about. And they send you back. They send you to Georgia.
Yes, sir.
Talk about that.
He conveniently forgot to tell them that, he was part of it.
Right.
He had
Right.
some little drug thing or something. Nothing, no major cocaine, but just some minor stuff. And he's like, look, let's make a deal.
Yeah.
That strong arm robbery that happened, the guy that did that told me all about it.
So he never
so that's
does
how
any
they find
jail
out
time.
about me.
Right.
But when the detective, his name was Gene Rayburn from the Colquitt County Sheriff's Department, when he come to talk, it was either that or the Moultrie PD, whichever, but I believe he was Colquitt County Sheriff's Office. When he come to see me, I was in the Washington County Jail at that time awaiting trial on the murder charge. And we were talking, and he said something, I'm paraphrasing, but it was something akin to, Ed, I've been doing this a long time. He said, that guy, he could have wrote a book about all that stuff you told him. Who tells a stranger or even a friend all those details?
Right.
He said, that guy is so full of, tell us what really happened. I know he was there. He was part of it, wasn't he? I said, yeah, he was. And then I told him, I said, he was the getaway driver. It was his idea. I run the whole thing down about, look, I'm not trying to make it okay. I'm not trying to say it was okay to do it. It was still a crime. I didn't know I was going to be robbing somebody. I thought she was part of the whole thing. It was a setup to defraud the store, the insurance company out of some money.
Yeah, so did he ended up going to jail for that,
yes, sir,
correct?
Because the guy told me, Detective Rayburn, he said, will you give me a statement on that? Because that's not part of the plea, the deal that we made him, because I'm going straight back to Moultrie, and I'm going to have the pleasure of going to see him and putting him in handcuffs and charging him with accessory before and after the fact.
So, Andy, we have another twist, okay? Now, you're 24, 25 years old at this point.
Yeah.
You're in Georgia for a week and a half for this because they've sent you up to deal with this strong-arm robbery.
Yes, sir.
And you and 6 others escaped from this jail that you describe as an Andy Griffith-type Mayberry jail.
At that time, it was. I mean, you're talking about a county jail that has a regular knob, wooden, open door.
Goes off. It's 11 o'clock at night on a Sunday night. How did you make it? You made it to Jacksonville, then Tallahassee. How did you get there?
I was with a guy named Andy Stripling, and his girlfriend is the one that come and picked us up. We got to the back of a store and used the phone. And this was probably 6 o'clock in the morning. We'd been in the woods, moving all around, not leaving no signs and stuff like that right there. We knew our way around. He calls her. She comes and picks us up. We go to Albany, Georgia.
Right.
She goes in and gets a motel room. All 3 of us stay there overnight. The next day we go to Jacksonville. This guy Andy evidently had quite a bit of I don't mean like rich, but a substantial amount of cash he could get his hand on, some drugs, and a gun that he was going to get in Jacksonville. That's where he was originally from. We go there. We're there and out in one day, and then we go to Tallahassee, Florida.
Right.
And got a motel there.
But you're basically now, you have no money.
No money.
You have no transportation. Everybody's on their own.
No ID, no nothing.
And you decide to rob a taxi driver.
Yes, sir.
And, talk about that.
I called it. I was thought about it. I said, I need to get some money. How do I do this? I was a criminal-minded person at the time. I said, well, I'm just going to hang out away from, because, I mean, I knew as the crow flies, we're only 30, 35, 40 miles from Moultrie, Georgia.
Right.
Our picture is probably all in the Tallahassee Democrat, on the news and everything else. So let me just stay out of sight, kind of hang out the edge of the woods here by this little lake. And then this evening, after a good cab driver's done had a day collecting, people be surprised. Sometimes they would have some pretty good money. I said, I'm going to call a cab, and when they come get me, I'm gonna rob them. I'm going to get the money, and at least I got some money in my pocket. Guy shows up. I just give him some fictitious address that I don't even, I know the street, but I don't even know if that number exists. They didn't have Google and all that back then. So,
but now you take a broken pocket knife and put it behind his ear to make him think it's the barrel of a gun.
Of his head. Yeah, I didn't even open it.
And he fights for his life.
We're at a red light, and he spun around, and we start fighting right there. Him in the front seat, me in the back.
And that's when you said, you know what? I killed somebody. Okay, it was maybe it was justified. He pulled a knife, but I can't hurt this guy. And you ran. You took off.
Yeah.
And turned yourself in at a Texaco gas station.
Yep. We were struggling, and I finally kind of got the better of him, and I had my arm around him, and I could have literally I could have choked the life out of him, and just something internally. You know, it sounds like something that was long and drawn out. This passed through my mind in the blink of an eye. What you're in prison for, it's not excusable, but there is some element of understanding. It's not okay what you did, but this man played somewhat of a role in his own death. This man works for a living, and you're fixing to hurt or kill this man for his money. That's a Rubicon. If you cross that, you can never return from that. And I let him go, grabbed the door, jumped out, and ran.
That's called guilt, I guess.
So
First time you had experienced that thought in your head during these criminal years?
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting is that you actually go to a Texaco station. They give you a quarter, and you tell the attendant who you are. You call the police department, and they send one car over to pick you up.
Yes, sir.
They put you in the car. He let you smoke a cigarette, and then he put you in the car, and he drove you over to a recent robbery of a taxi driver that somebody called in, and you actually identified the victim.
When we had talked some before about this, some of the elements we're discussing, I don't think I actually had mentioned it. When we're in the car, I was saying something to the cop, and he said, hold on. Oh. And he grabbed the radio, and he responded on something. And I heard the radio call, and I told him, I said, you can tell him you've got him in custody. It was me.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And he turned and looked at me. I said, that was the cab robbery thing. Guy responded to that. He goes, yeah. I said, that was me. I said, I can't do this. He said, okay. And that's when he drove me over and pulled up, run the window down. The Sarge that's on the site is walking the guy over, and I looked out at him, and I said, yes, sir, that's him right there. That's the man I tried to rob.
Oh, my God.
And the Sarge stops, and he looks at the deputy in the car with me, and he goes, some colorful language, real colorful, I won't use here. He said, that's the first. In my whole career, that's the first time I've ever had the perp identify the victim.
Yeah. So you're charged and convicted on additional escape charge, armed robbery, because it wasn't the gun, but they thought you made them think it was a gun.
Made him, but that is armed
and you
robbery.
Got 18 additional years running concurrently with your life
20.
With running concurrently with your life sentence. So at this point, you're 25, 26 years old. You've gone from an unbelievable student not that long ago to a young man with a first-degree murder charge, armed robbery, strong-arm robbery, and now an escape. Did you ever ask yourself, how did I get here?
I don't think that it was really so much as a how did I get here thing. I knew that all along. I believe what it really was when I told you that in 1996, I had a complete paradigm shift. I was at Cross City. I was doing real good. Yeah. I had it about as good as you can have it in prison. They have a great hobbycraft program there. I love doing hobbycraft and stuff, artwork and stuff. We had everything, wood shop. It was awesome. We had that. We had the all kinds of programs, all kinds of vocations. I worked at Pride. I mean, I've literally got it as good as you can have it in prison. And my parents were even come to see me for my birthday. 16 of us got called to be tested for cause. I was getting high every day. I had been in prison for some time now, 13 years. Why am I going to stop, the chain gang wine and stuff, and occasionally real street booze, the story on that. But I didn't even consider not doing it. I'm like, oh, I'm here now.
Right.
I'm gonna do me. I'm gonna enjoy myself best I can. And it was so. I guess one of them things that it just right time, right place, and it was God working in my life, Chris, because I was sitting there going, I got my hobby locker. I'm going to lose that. I got my Pride job. They'll hire me back. I'm a certified master screen printer, but they got to wait 6 months before they can hire me.
But after you were convicted again on robbery and escape, you had to be reprocessed. You went back to the reception center, and then you ended up at Union Correctional Institution.
Yes, sir.
Now the Rock was kind of closed down,
Yeah.
but Union is still one of the most violent prisons in the country, and that's where you ended up in your 20s.
Right.
How did you survive 35 years of prison?
I was always a humble guy. I'm a small-statured person anyway. I was always real humble, but there were a few times that, I don't even like to dwell on it. It's prison. There were a few times when I had to make a statement, and a couple of those times I had to get very violent.
Well, you pulled a knife out on a couple of occasions.
Yes, sir.
And what was your belief on a knife? There's two types of people that use a knife.
When a guy about 4 times my size I was going to do this and that and the other, or else, and yada, yada, yada. I reached behind me, I pulled the knife out, and I said, you see that? I said, there's 2 types of people that will pull a knife on you. Those that pull one because they're scared or think it'll scare you, and those that know how to use it. I said, a whole bunch of my family are Cajun people. I will gut you like a fish. I know how to fight with a knife.
You actually, put a sexual predator on you down by sticking a pencil inside his eye, correct?
That was at Baker Correctional Institution.
Did that blind him?
Yeah, I stuck 2 inches of pencil in his left eye. I didn't want to. He was a sexual predator. And I knew I had to make a statement. I'm fresh on a mandatory quarter. If I don't make a statement right now, this is going to follow me my whole life sentence.
And that's how it works in prison.
Yeah, that's exactly how it works. They're not looking for somebody that'll fight and stand up for themselves. They're looking for easy pickings, easy prey. That's what they look for. I'm not going to be that victim. And
you also at one time, almost out of a Stephen King movie, you had an electrical cord on somebody who was trying to be sexual with you, and you almost electrocuted them while they were taking a shower, correct?
Yeah. That was one instance where it wasn't really a sexual thing. It was just he had verbally disrespected me in so many foul ways in front of the entire TV room that I seen people looking at me.
Like, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah, what are you going to do about this? That guy going to talk to you? Because if I let him talk to me like that, some predator knows he can put down on me. So I just said, more on this later. And I walked out of the TV room.
You've spent 35 years in prison.
Yes, sir.
What's the worst thing you've seen?
Yeah, what was the most violent thing you saw in all your years of prison?
I seen a guy get almost decapitated over a 40-cent pack of peanut butter cookies.
Talk about that.
It was at Baker Institution. It was my second day there. This guy, big workout beast, sitting in a chair right up in front of the TV. This little bitty white guy comes in there and he stops and he goes, I'm sorry, man, but weren't those cookies in that chair? And the statement that he made was, don't know effing white woman's genital, white boy.
Right.
We'll put that together. Save no chair in my TV room. But the guy looked at him and he goes, Yeah, okay, man, I don't want no problem. I know you don't want no problem with me, boy. He grabbed the cookies and he went back and he tells his buddy, he said, I knew something was up because I told Chris that thing about that 1,000-yard stare, that's the first time I ever seen it. He's looking at this guy like he's looking at the dirt through him on the second floor. He said, I'm going to get some coffee, dog. You want some? And I seen his friend going, come on, man. He goes, what? You got me bent. You want some coffee? Yeah, man, I'll take some coffee. He leaves. It's about 3 or 4 minutes later, a guy that I had kind of become friends with, befriended, sitting next to me, taps me, and I look over at him, and he's motioning me, move, move. And I'm like, what? Move. And he points, and I turn and look behind me. That same little white guy's coming up between everybody through the TV room with a homemade sword. It's a lawnmower blade mounted to the about probably 18 inches of bush axe handle. And he snuck up behind the guy and he hit him right in the neck with it.
Wow.
When that guy slid out of the chair, I was looking. I saw parts of him only a coroner's supposed to see. I saw his windpipe drawing closed and open, trying to pull air. I mean, the gash in his neck right there, it was gapped open like that. I'm watching blood spray out of his carotid artery. I looked at that and I was like, my second day really in prison.
Second day in prison.
And I was like, already trying to get in that prison mode to where you're like, you can't show it, you can't show it, you can't show fear, you can't show fear, you can't show it like, you got to act like this is just another day at the office, otherwise they'll smell it on you.
What happened? You know, did guards come running in? What happened?
The guard went to beating on the window. A lot of guys jumped up, running out of the TV room, and I looked, and I'm trying to play this off. Inside, I'm shaking like a hamster at a disco. I mean, that's the truth. I looked at my buddy and I went, it's the definition of a bad day, buddy. Toto, we're not in Kansas no more. I'm going to my room and enjoying my coffee because they fixing to lock this booger down. Got up calmly like Clint Eastwood, strolled right out of there. Another day at the office. Got to my room, shut the door, and I was like, oh, man.
Whatever happened to the guy who murdered him?
He just got another mandatory quarter. He was already doing 4 life sentences for murders.
Wow.
When the guy disrespected him, what he didn't know was that same young kid was doing 3 life sentences from Louisiana. That guy did like 12 years at Angola State Penitentiary.
In Louisiana.
That makes anything in Florida look like a daycare center.
What was the best prison you were at?
Cross City.
Why?
All the hobby craft.
Okay.
The Pride. I loved working with Pride. I'd have did the job for free.
How about the worst prison? What was the worst prison you were at?
I would say Martin Correctional. I never encountered any violence. This was in my latter years there, toward pretty much almost the end of my sentence. I say end of my time in prison, but it was real violent there, gangs, and it was just always locked down, not being able to get to the canteen. It never visited me. I had no problems there the 2 years I was there, but it was one of them. It's always something, some idiots out there creating problems.
How would you rate, or how would you rate Everglades Correctional Institution?
When I left there, I would rate it pretty highly. It's like anything else, Chris. I'm not going to disparage correctional officers. You have some there that they think it's their job to punish you and be ugly to you and just really talk to you foul. The majority, they're there to do a job.
Right.
They're there to do a job. They're not trying to give you a hard time. I encountered some bad officers while I was there that just talk to you. No matter how polite you are to them, they'll speak back to you like, what are you even doing speaking to me? I encountered some there that would be just like, if it wasn't for the fact I'm in blue and he was in brown, we could have been friends.
You mentioned the sword by the gentleman who committed that murder, heinous murder. You mentioned you had a knife. Were most people in the prisons you were in, were they most of them armed?
I wouldn't even say most people, but, and this is not to disparage someone who's trying to live right and doesn't have a weapon or have access to one, but for a while there, especially in the earlier, they have much more control over the system now than they did back like the Cross City and the Baker thing. Right. Back then, it was like far more wide open. There's less of it now. There's still violence, but there's less of it now because they have more control. The control movement and stuff prevents, not totally, But a lot of the stuff, when I was at Cross City, when they cleared count, blow the whistle, yards open, you come and go as you please until next count time. You just can't go to an unauthorized area. You can't go up and just walk in classification or go in the colonel's office. Hey, buddy, how you doing? You know, but you can go on the compound general anywhere you want to go all the way until next count time. You can't do that now. It's controlled movement most places every half hour to and from the dorm. You leave the dorm, and wherever you going to, you get there.
Drugs and alcohol, easy to get in prison?
Absolutely.
How does it get in?
The
People
guards?
sneaking them in.
A lot of correction officers?
There's correctional officers, but I won't just put it on them. But sometimes it's the correctional officers, I guess, and I'm not judging.
It could
I
be the
don't judge
paramedics
nobody.
coming in.
An officer might say, well, I won't do dope, but I'll smuggle in tobacco. I
Right.
smoke. I think they should be able to have it. He'll justify it that way, even though it's against the law.
You were transferred into the corrections transition program at Everglades on July 3rd of 2013.
Yes, sir.
You were in that. That's when I met you.
Yes, sir.
In 2013, and you were paroled on December 18th of 2018.
Yes, sir.
What was it like to walk out of prison, almost a free man, after 35 years?
In a way, it's easy. It's a convoluted answer, but it's easy to answer because I still feel that way today. It'll never get brand new to me, Chris. I mean, as far as that goes, that old feeling will never be brand new then. It's brand new to me right now. When I wake up, when I sit here and look out that window, and I don't see no chain link fence with razor wire on it. I am utterly grateful beyond words. Every day is a fresh start for me. Every single day is like the day I just got out of prison, because I refuse to ever take this for granted again. I'll never do that. Being able to just throw peanuts to the squirrels, it's priceless.
Can I ask a question? Is your faith helped you get to that place, faith in God?
If it was not for God, I wouldn't be here right now. We never even covered this, and I won't go into detail. I took a shortcut to get off the top of a 22-story condominium in Panama City. I was so high, I forgot I was 22 stories up. Literally, it sounds like a joke. I forgot where I was at. Got to get back to the ship. Got duty tomorrow. I'll take the quick way. The road's right here. Road's right out here. It sounds bizarre, like something out of a Cheech and Chong comedy. I'm serious. I jumped off the AC unit. I'm on the roof. I got the best view in Panama City looking at the ocean. I jumped off the AC unit, walked over to the retainer wall, jumped the retainer, it's about waist high, put my hand up on it like you would a short fence, and jumped right over it. It's 22 stories to the sidewalk. I landed on a pressure washing platform about 4 feet down. That pressure washing platform is about building's probably 150 feet. What are the odds of that being a coincidence? But I'll say this. Now, that was some good dope I was smoking and was high on. When I hit my knees and grabbed that rail and I looked and I realized what I had just done, I wasn't high no more. I was like, oh, my God. And that's the drugs for you. Any sane person says no more.
Edward,
No
what has been the biggest challenge for you getting out of prison and being on parole?
Patience.
Patience for what?
Success.
But you're doing well. You've got a good job now.
Yes, sir. It took me 2 years and 7 months. I wanted it to happen the first day I was out.
You're working for a transportation Jacks. What's the name of the company?
It's I would prefer to, because I mean the company, I'm not sure that
Oh, I thought you'd want to mention. I mean, they gave you a chance.
I mean, well, as far as that go, yeah, well, I will. It was cool. It's Cool Transportation Jacks.
Okay.
Yes.
In Jacksonville.
My boss has blessed me and blessed me richly. He gave me an opportunity when many wouldn't, and that's my message to the community at large. We just want a chance. We just want to. I didn't come out with any preconceived notions that anyone owes me anything, Chris. Too many people, they locked me up for 30 years, 20 years, whatever. They owe me for that. They don't owe you nothing. They owe me nothing. Nobody owed me anything. All I asked for was the grace and consideration to give me the opportunity to show you I will not let what happened define me. It's not who I am. Let me earn your trust.
But
Just
if you
give me
could
the chance
speak,
to
if
earn
you could
your
speak
trust.
to a bunch of, teenagers in high school. What advice would you give them on drugs and alcohol and choosing their friends wisely?
Just say no sounds so trite. It's the truest words you'll ever hear in your entire life. They will destroy you. You got control. You got this. Seen it, been there. You got it. You're doing okay until you're not. And your life can change from one moment to the next. You're one bad decision away from death row, prison, or whatever. Drugs will destroy you. It's not a matter of will they, it's a matter of when. There's no in between. I've been smoking pot for 5 years, snorting coke for 10 years. Okay, you've been doing good. That just means your clock's ticking on you, because when the piper comes calling, you're going to have to pay, and you ain't got that much money in the world.
It'll catch up to you.
It will catch up to you. They will destroy you. They give you they alter your reality. And I don't mean LSD, I'm tripping. I don't mean that. They alter the way you literally think about things.
Right.
Powerful.
Wow.
I wasn't hurting nobody but me. If I'm getting high and I'm drinking, I'm not hurting nobody. But this is before the murder when I first started. I'm not hurting nobody but me. When it all come to light, I was hurting every single person that cared anything about me. I was hurt. They were hurt. My mother, it was hurting her. It's like I was ripping her heart out.
Right.
Where did we go wrong? That's the first thing they did was blame themselves. Where did we go wrong? I had the best pair. If there's anything I could wish for my best friend, it would be that if he doesn't already have, that he would have parents like I had. My parents didn't go wrong anywhere. I chose that garbage over the love they had for me.
How does the life feel now?
God's good all the time.
Edward,
I've had a second chance, and the only time I'll ever see the inside of a correctional facility or jail is if I go visit, trying to reach out and speak to somebody. I live right. I live clean. I'm living the life my parents that I know, they're not here anymore, but I'm a very spiritual person. They can see me, and they're proud of the man that I am today. That's all that matters to me.
Amen, brother. Amen.
Edward, you have been a fantastic guest. I know you do, come down to East Everglades Correctional on occasion. You're always welcome here to be a guest on this show. And I just want to thank you so much for being here today and doing what you do for the men at Everglades and in the Corrections Transition Program. Thank you.
Chris, Andy, thank
Andy,
you both.
Awesome.
Andy, final comments?
Wow, very powerful and great to see a guy like this straightening out his life the way he has, a victim of drugs and alcohol, and now he's straightened it all out. It's very inspiring, Ed, very inspiring.
Thank you.
Well, that does it for today. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. Special thanks to Grant Miller in South Miami, Christian Stenstrom in Sweden, and John McCarthy in Fort Myers. Thank you so much for letting us know you're enjoying the shows. And please join us next week for a premiere episode of Men Going Home. And all of our shows are available on truecrimemiami.com. And if you like this show, please share it with your friends. And thank you all so much for watching and listening. Thank you.